Pot possession and the police. In the future in South Florida, you may get a ticket for a small amount of pot instead of going to jail.
Make no mistake about this. This is not about legalizing marijuana or legalizing drug paraphernalia.
No free pass, but no criminal record. The people who drove this changing policies of pot are with us here live.
And Jeb Bush is about to make it official, finally. His scheduled announcement tomorrow, one of the several topics on politics we will take to the Powerhouse Roundtable.
And we'll be there for that. Looking forward to it. Good morning, everyone. So great to have you with us, as always, to delve into some of the biggest and most talked about issues of the week.
And we have got a lot of ground to cover this morning. We are going to begin with the big changes that are coming in local laws governing marijuana. Pot is still illegal in any amount, but there is a movement underway on both sides of Biscayne Bay to make possession of small amounts of marijuana a minor offense.
Police will have wide latitude in deciding whether to charge, and size matters. In lieu of arrest, those found with a stash of fewer than 20 grams may get a civil citation, a ticket, and a fine of $100.
Miami-Dade County Commissioner Sally Hayman has been pushing for this policy for several years. She says young people, mainly minorities, are busted disproportionately for having marijuana, and once they are in the criminal justice pipeline, it is hard for them to get out. Dan Oates, oh, I'm sorry, Glenna, go ahead.
Thank you. Dan Oates is the police chief of Miami Beach. He told city commissioners this week that reforming rules on pot will allow his officers to spend more time dealing with serious crime instead of making minor marijuana arrests.
And Jim Hall has been tracking drug use in South Florida for decades. He issues a yearly report on what illegal drugs are in the highest demand, their cost, and their consequences. He is an epidemiologist at Nova Southeastern University. And great to have you all come in.
Welcome.
Good morning. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Sally Hayman, tell us, what is the basic rationale for moving to not, as you have pointed out, this does not decriminalize marijuana, but to make it a relatively minor misdemeanor ticketable offense?
I believe there's greater needs for our police, law enforcement resources in our community, on our streets, and when you look at the population of our jails, disproportionately of the less than 5,000 incarcerated, the majority of them are in jail for nonviolent misdemeanors. Jail should be for locking up the violent, assuring public safety, or assuring there's no flight, not for misdemeanors that have no means of paying for bail, or they don't need a criminal record to further shackle.
That goes far beyond the pot issue.
Yeah, exactly. But you're saying this is a victimless crime when you're talking about small amounts of a drug that is illegal.
Yes.
Victimless crime.
Chief, we were talking before the show. You were the chief in Ann Arbor, where there is such a law and such policies in place. How does that work? How did it?
Yeah, Ann Arbor's had an option for officers to issue civil citations for well over 30 years, and I was the chief there for 4 years. And we found it to be completely workable.
Well, how often, well, excuse me, let me go back. When I spoke with you on Wednesday at Miami Beach City Hall, you told me and other reporters that you believe in the coming, I don't know, 6 months or year, there may be something like 400 people who otherwise would have been arrested to whom you will give these tickets, and you say that's going to free up your officers to deal with more serious crime.
Right. We projected that in this year, 2015, there would be about 400 arrests solely for possession of misdemeanor amounts of marijuana, and that's sort of the data, the population, the numbers that we would be dealing with if we were to go to this alternative. And we've received policy direction from the Commission this week through the first reading of the ordinance that we should go in that direction. Now, I made clear to the Commission there will be some exceptions where we will continue to charge criminal possession. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll have to put out policy guidance to my officers about that.
Just to be clear, 400 is the number just in Miami Beach.
That's correct.
All right. Jim Hall, hold on. We're going to get to you in a second. Chief Oates, the other day at Miami Beach City Hall, showed me these, this is show and tell time, and it's pretty interesting, though. If we could get a tight shot, this is a bag with 20 grams of, well, it's really oregano, but I mean, if
Say
it
it
were,
smells like an Italian restaurant here.
yeah, for our pizza later. But if this were marijuana, this is what 20 grams of pot would look like. On the other hand, here is 20 grams that is all set up in nice baggies. And Chief, if one of your officers went out and found somebody in a car, not driving, but you found this in a car, this might be a ticket. This would be an arrest.
Well, let's be clear. I'm going to have to give guidance to my officers so that everyone sort of is on the same page. But the one package is just packaged for, on its appearance, personal use. The other is clearly packaged for sale, and that will be one of the times when we would charge for the possession. We would seek a criminal prosecution. Another time will be if it's possessed in a car. We're going to take the position, I made this clear to the Commission, that use or possession of marijuana in a car is an aggravating factor for which we're going to exercise our discretion to pursue a criminal charge.
And it is already, Sally Hammond, part of any charge. A police officer can charge for driving under the influence, includes obviously drugs, and marijuana is one of those drugs.
Correct.
All right, let's bring Jim Hall into this conversation. From your research, I mean, what is your take on a policy like this?
Well, first of all, my research is involved in particularly looking at the consequences of substance abuse. And marijuana, as a major and the #1 illicit drug of use in our society, is not necessarily always a harmless substance. And there are problems associated with it. But I welcome this ordinance as an opportunity to be a more progressive and hopefully more positive approach to dealing with substance abuse. Yeah. Hopefully this is going to give us a chance to really educate the community, to get more realistic about what are the populations that must avoid marijuana use and how to avoid problems associated with it.
Jim, in fact, I think that, and I've known you for almost 30 years, and you have certainly schooled me on a number of occasions about drugs and what a terrible influence on society they can be and lead to violence, corruption, all kinds of, and ruin lives. But when you look at, say, a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, kids whose brains are in the developmental stages who are regular users of marijuana, there can be some long-range negative impact of that, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. For instance, the probability of having an adult lifetime substance dependency problem is six-fold for those who've had their first use of marijuana by age 14 or younger. The likelihood of developing a mental illness in adulthood is increased almost double-fold for a child who had marijuana by age 12 or younger. So these are factors that are there, and one of the more vulnerable population are adolescents. And unfortunately, 60% of all the first-time users of marijuana are under the age of 18. Yeah. But we need to use the opportunities and approaches, and particularly we see heavy patterns of use in that population, just like we do with alcohol.
So the effects of the drug are directly related to why there are laws about the drugs, no doubt. But my sense is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the laws that are now being talked about and implemented go more toward the disparity in who gets arrested, not necessarily who's using the drug, but who gets arrested. Sally Hammond?
That's correct. And to the issue of juveniles, on the books now in the entire state of Florida is a first civil citation, and that includes possession and use of marijuana. So it gives someone a break if they deserve one. In this situation, we did a study of who's in our jail, what they were picked up for, and in a 6-month period, we had 1,670 people picked up for marijuana possession. That resulted in every one of them getting a police record. Only 20 ended up being booked, and only 2 were kept in custody. Those are the extenuating circumstances Chief spoke about. But right now, their only option was arrest them. So for all that, over 1,640-something people ended up with an arrest and then sent on their way.
And when they try to go into the military or apply for a job or go to college, and if they are asked, and often they are asked on the forum, have you ever been arrested?
That's it.
They have to say,
That's the
they've got to
barrier.
say yes.
And hopefully, rather than spending time in jail, we could spend a little time in a classroom. Hopefully, we could include within this proposal in the future steps an opportunity for education, for assessment, and for intervention. Not punitive, but providing protection for the individual to know a bit more about and to help determine how much they want marijuana to be a part of their life.
Chief, doesn't your officer have on the street have discretion right now what to do when he or she comes upon someone like that? Why do you even need this law?
Well, we didn't have discretion to have a penalty alternative to jail and to a criminal charge. And so this is a reasonable alternative, and again, we've gotten our guidance. My biggest concern, I have two big concerns which I expressed to the Commission about this. One is that this will lead to a misconception out there that you can consume publicly marijuana in Miami Beach, and we are going to be very rigorous in arresting people for that. That is not going to change. And the second is that if there is a perception that Miami Beach is more permissible about the use of marijuana, then more people will think they can do that, and we will get more complaints about open use of marijuana. And that is a quality of life offense, which is not on the highest priority for the police, and it may result in us not being able to respond to all those complaints.
But how interesting that this week, on the very day that your mayor and commission passed on first reading this ordinance, Commissioner Hayman and a subcommittee of the Miami-Dade Commission moved forward on essentially the same thing. So there is a movement that I don't think anybody who would say, let's go to Miami Beach, hang out in the park and smoke a spliff because they're easy on us over there, that's not going to be true.
I think this is a good time to take a break. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Okay, sorry.
Welcome back. We are in the midst of an excellent discussion on marijuana laws and how they are affected in the streets, changing ways. Chief Dan Oates from Miami Beach, Commissioner Sally Hayman from Miami-Dade County, Jim Hall, an epidemiologist at Nova Southeastern University. And just to pick up on the theme we left off, if this is a victimless crime and the discretion is to arrest or to fine for marijuana, why not put on the same policy for things like crack cocaine if there's a bit of
first
crack
of all, I want to say, you're not going to get me as a police chief to say that use, sale, distribution of marijuana is a victimless crime. I've seen during the course of my career.
Actually, I was just repeating what the commissioner said earlier,
but
for the record.
So I just want to make that clear. There are all kinds of issues still associated with it, and there's a reason why government and public policy is still going to charge people with, for instance, use of marijuana in Miami Beach for sound reasons. So I just want to get that point across.
And you sound very seriously concerned that the perception of what's going on here will be mistaken.
Right. I don't, and certainly based on the expressions of our city commission the other day, do we want people to think that you can be smoking marijuana freely in Miami Beach. That will still be sanctioned with arrest.
If I could, on Wednesday afternoon, Commissioner Hayman, her committee, a subcommittee of the Miami-Dade County Commission, took up this proposed ordinance. They passed it 5-1, but several members, at least a couple of members, your fellow commissioners, had some reservations, and there was one, I thought, very good exchange between Commissioner Juan Zapata and J.D. Patterson, the Miami-Dade Police Director. Let's run that exchange.
When we implement this, how are you guys, how do you envision the training and the, if it's approved, and I think the support's there, how do you envision how this is going to get rolled out, and what kind of discretion does a police officer have? So, I mean, the concern that I have, and there's a park in particular in my district where, I get a lot of complaints from the parents who feel uncomfortable taking their kids to the park because by the basketball courts, there's always some folks partaking of the substance. So, what discretion does that have, and how are we going to have a policy where we always give this civil citation, or what are the conditions under which an arrest would be made?
Actually, I want to believe, Commissioner, that the discretion is still very, very important to the officer as to what they're dealing with and who they're dealing with and what circumstances they find themselves addressing. I believe if you have a bunch of joints in your pocket, and it's obvious that you might have a misdemeanor amount, but you're not just, for recreational use, you might actually be selling them. I want to believe that an officer will actually effect an arrest in that case.
All right, so Commissioner Heyman, I mean, pretty clear cut. According to the police chief of Miami-Dade County, Chief Oates basically just said the same thing. Kids who are out in public at a basketball court or any place else smoking openly in public, that's not, they're not going to get a ticket for that, right?
No. You know, it really depends on the situation. So if you say straight out smoking and it's an individual, nothing in the civil citation says consumption. It says possession.
Yeah.
It's still illegal. But then when you say it's in a park, it's in a school, by virtue of where you are, that is illegal. So it really goes to the officer, whoever he or she is, determining all the factors. This is consumption. Not only is it illegal, but it's not a civil citation offense. It just says possession. Parks, schools, daycare, hospitals, there's a bunch of categories demographically that make it illegal, and those are extenuating circumstances.
All right,
those
but,
remain.
you know, part of your concern, I know, Sally, and the concern of many people in the community, I said, I mean, Jim Hall, Chief Oates, is that police, and we saw some excellent reports down in, about South Miami-Dade in predominantly black neighborhoods, where hundreds of young people between the ages of roughly 16, 25 were being arrested on pot possession, and then the charges are all dismissed. They don't go anywhere, and these young people who are mainly black wind up beginning in the criminal justice system, and they do have an arrest record.
That literally was another category of why, or impetus, why to move forward now on this. We already have civil citations. They're not new. This is a new category, and putting marijuana on it. It is costing us over $150 a day to book them and process them in our jails. It takes a lot of officers out of their jurisdiction to process them. I believe we could resource tens of millions of dollars and 6 different agencies in the criminal justice system better, including starting with juveniles and education.
And let's use this as an opportunity, one, to educate, but also to help people identify. Why not a 1-hour course? We could even do it online, similar to what we do with traffic school, to help people understand various issues about marijuana and its higher potencies these days, and particularly to provide a self-assessment. We have a 15-minute assessment process that's developed by the Miami Coalition and the Health Foundation of South Florida that does screening, a brief intervention, and referral to any appropriate services. This could all be incorporated with this and make this a truly harm reduction effort.
Maybe funded by the $100 fine for the civil citation.
And maybe instead of paying a fine, they would just do the course.
Well, I like this
partial
idea.
fine.
I hope that is pursued, Jim. I think that's an excellent idea. Thank you for coming in, Sally Hammond, Chief Dan Oates. Thank you, and thanks for bringing your oregano. I'll give it back to you.
Thank you.
All right, we are just hours away from a big announcement that probably needs no announcing. Is Jeb Bush a candidate for president?
Wow, is he?
Roundtable, it's next. Time now to take a critical and hopefully somewhat analytical look at the top news stories of the week with our Powerhouse Roundtable.
And we have a great lineup of roundtable guests for you today. Charles Eldon is a professor of history, legal studies at Nova Southeastern University, and he specializes in politics. Nancy Ann Crum is the editorial page editor of the Miami Herald. We're glad to welcome her back. And also Billy Corbin, who is a filmmaker. His documentaries include Yes, the U, Cocaine Cowboys, and most recently, Dog Fight.
Well, you know, we had to get that in there because Nova Southeastern University today on our program is very well represented, so shout out to the U for you. Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Thank you.
So big announcement tomorrow. What could that be? Gee.
No idea.
You know, news is what's not supposed to happen. You know, dog bites man. I'm waiting for Jeb Bush to say, I've decided that this is not the right time. And, but
I'll hold on to the money.
Nancy,
If he could hang on to the money, he might.
it's an event for someone to now announce for president. It's an event.
All you're kicking off is that we're going to have to talk about this for the next year and a half. So why are we talking about it now?
Because it's
Let's talk about Bernie
interesting.
Sanders in Iowa. Let's talk about that.
It's an event, and come on, it's Jeb is our guy every much as Marco Rubio is. Marco got to the Freedom Tower first, so Jeb is left to
Kendall campus of Miami-Dade.
Kendall, right?
Got to find out Palacio de los Jugos to announce that. Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, I went to the Palacio de Jugos with Mitt Romney.
Yes, that's what I was
It didn't
thinking.
exactly work for him, but
Yeah, well, that'll be
didn't go
another
well.
topic for another roundtable.
Charles Zeldin, tell us what is the main thing? What are the main things that Jeb Bush has to say and do tomorrow to really say, I'm the guy. I'm the guy to be the candidate.
Well, he needs to, first of all, make it clear that the days of Willie or won't are gone, that I am in it fully, that I am different from the other candidates who are running for the Republican nomination, and ignore my brother.
They are so different. They really are
and
so different.
Jeb, I mean, he's not the politician his brother was. He's more like his father. But in terms of policy, there's night and day.
But not as evidenced by any of his advisors. His entire team is just reruns all over again of W's administration. So the same, you can't say, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes. I mean, that's not right. And I understand that Jeb's yet another Florida man running for president.
Man.
But how many times have you mentioned Bernie Sanders on the show, who was already a candidate for president, who brought the House down in Iowa, who is already being dismissed by the media as a viable candidate?
You actually are the first.
We've not had Bernie Sanders.
This is a boring drinking game.
Rand Paul or Dr. Ben Carson. But believe me, if we could get him on the show, we will. We'll
got any yank there?
Nancy, what about the dynasty issue? Because we're going to hear this over and again, and I think Jeb has to say something, because look, it was his mother, the estimable Barbara Bush, who 5 or 6 months ago said, we don't need a third Bush in the White House, and now Jeb says, well, Mom has come around, and she...
And of course, by extension, she was saying we don't need another Clinton either.
Yes, she was.
So the dynasty issue hits both sides. I think that Jeb Bush has the personality, the demeanor that one will gloss over that, and two will calm quite a bit of people if he can put a lot of daylight between his brother.
Can I just pick up on your demeanor? Can we put up the Jeb Bush Twitter feed this morning, because it's new, and you will see if we can get it up there. There it is. Okay, does this remind you of the bumper sticker from when Jeb ran for governor? It's Jeb with the exclamation point. But Jeb is not an exclamation point. To your point, he's very thoughtful and steady and low-key, somewhat introverted.
He's thoughtful and steady, but he also improvises well. He's spontaneous.
Right.
He comes across as a, pretty human. I think, let's look at the other side of the aisle. I think that Hillary is going to have a bigger problem in coming across as I'm just one of the chicks.
And he has a primary to run, so he's got to come out swinging a little bit.
Right.
Well, he does. He's got to take on some of these. I think he's got to say something about Marco tomorrow.
Yes.
I want to know how many
is an
parking
explanation
tickets Jeb
point?
has. That's the story I'm looking forward to.
I'm going to bet none.
Let's do some real journalism here. Let's count the parking tickets.
That's probably because someone's driving for him anyhow. But no.
Well said.
Well, but what makes Jeb a viable candidate is that he has governed. So many of the Republican candidates have not governed.
Right.
Even though they may have been governors or senators, they have been transformative politicians who have not sought to govern, but rather to change.
And that's so interesting because his record, when you look at the field, the pundits say he's the moderate choice so far, and that might be an issue. But
they haven't
he is
looked at his record.
He's a very
conservative.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
He's going to really have to be called to account, and people probably will call him to account for, say, Terry Schiavo.
Right.
That issue, which was a big, giant step into what I think what I know so many people said was just this personal family issue.
The field, which is starting to look like America's Got No Talent. It's like a veritable rogues gallery of James Bond villains across the political spectrum. I mean, I think the notion or the prospect to a generation of millennials of another Bush v. Clinton is absolutely devastating, I think, to our perception of America as a democracy and the potential of America in the
So,
future.
Billy, just on a personal level, and with you, most things are on a personal level, and we love you.
At the risk of being cynical, but what am I here for?
Exactly, and we love you for it. But, I mean, all right, so what about 44-year-old Marco Rubio?
Yes.
I mean,
Wonderful
generationally,
question.
he relates to you in a way
No,
that
he doesn't.
62-year-old
Yeah, but he
Jeb
doesn't,
Bush
and let me
doesn't.
tell you why. Because most millennials are forced by nature of the death of the American dream to be entrepreneurial. Marco Rubio has spent a life in the public trough. He has no idea what it's like to create jobs, to have to maintain a payroll, as I have done as a small business owner. He has always been a politician. And I think that does not make you eligible to run this great country.
All right, so there are all the no's. Who's the yes?
Well, Elizabeth Warren, who's not running. I think Bernie Sanders is a very exciting prospect. I'm one of those idiots that votes for third-party candidates.
But who's the yes on the R side?
Well, exactly. You know, if we can, let's do a little segue to the Hillary Clinton, who yesterday in New York had a big rally, 5,000 people.
Was that her announcement?
And
yesterday?
made
No,
her.
that was her coming out party.
Oh,
Well,
coming out
wasn't
as
it?
what?
It looked like an announcement speech to me. She said, "I am running." She was no longer thinking about it, considering it. She said she was running. I thought she got off a pretty good line when she said the theme song for all the GOP Republican candidates, they're singing the same song, and it's Yesterday, the Beatles song, and she quoted from it. I thought that was pretty good.
I think that's a very good line, and you know, Marco Rubio, for all his youth and verve and the exclamation point, listened to his speech, and it was the Beatles yesterday.
Yeah, he was the candidate for today, speaking about the policies of yesterday.
With all due respect, I was for a woman who gets $250,000 to make a speech, I was a little underwhelmed at her as an orator, to tell you the truth. I mean, I thought
no bill to pay.
Yeah, I thought her. That's true. Who was paying for it? No, but I thought really she made George W. Bush look like Ronald Reagan with that delivery, and I was a little.
Wait, is that good or
I was a little
bad?
disappointed.
I was
Ronald
not,
Reagan was an orator, if nothing
you
else.
know, Billy, I'm going to agree with you. I kind of was waiting for a little fire, brimstone, and big
But
energy.
that's never been Hillary. That has never been Hillary. And when she had to go up against this new kid called Obama in 2008, you know, he had the flash and he also had the substance.
Yeah.
She has the substance, but it just does not come across as if
Yeah.
even
She's-
she believes it sometimes.
She's not a fiery orator. She never has been. I don't think she will
but,
be.
you know, once in a while you can sort of gather up your strength and get out there. I did find it ironic that a 67-year-old veteran of many political wars is out there saying, I'm essentially the progressive, the new kid on the block. I'll also be a grandmother, but I am the one with the youthful ideas.
That's the
I mean,
beauty of
isn't
America.
that
You
kind
can't
of like...
locate
But you know,
But in
67
some ways-
is the new 40. Come on.
Well, it's okay for me.
Can I get a hallelujah?
But let's get passionate about it. So that's the whole point. Bernie Sanders is talking about it. Do a shot. I mentioned him again. You know, Bernie Sanders is talking about climate
Oh,
change.
most
He's
of the time.
talking about Wall Street reform. He's talking about the income disparities. Talking about 22 United States military veterans committing suicide daily. All the things nobody wants to talk about, but is actually worth getting passionate about.
And once people, correct me if I'm wrong, once people say I'm in, like tomorrow, like Hillary Clinton yesterday, that they've got to start talking details.
They
and
do have to
policy.
start talking, but keep in mind, we are, over 6 months still from the first primary. We're a year and a half almost from the election.
Right.
The details will come out in little dribs and drabs. You can't be everything right now because then you're old hat when it matters.
Right.
On the other hand, you also have to make your brand name out now. You've got to decide, define who you are at this stage
Before anyone else
does.
Before your opponent does. Okay,
Right.
hold your thoughts. We're having a lot of fun here. We'll get to Bernie Sanders again, I think.
Is that a take a shot?
So we'll be back with the next segment of our roundtable in just a minute. Stay with us. Live in our studio on this Sunday morning, a really robust, I think, discussion of some big issues nationally, locally, and if we can, I don't want to not have you all make a comment about what essentially, it's not legalizing marijuana, but in my view, it really is kind of decriminalizing marijuana, because if you are found by a police officer with a small amount of pot, you get a ticket. So I think that a lot of people are going to say, big deal. I think they already say big deal.
Yeah, we've got big problems here. You know, editorially, we did support Commissioner Hayman's initiative. And what we really pushed is we really want to see numbers in a year. We want to see this monitored. And I think that J.D. Patterson, the police director, is feeling a little under siege right now, and we need to monitor numbers to see just how these things are parceled out.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, on the one hand, you know, the federal government has failed decade after decade. To do anything about this is now incumbent upon state governments, and maybe in this case local municipalities, to try to undo some of the devastating damage that the drug war has wrought on American families, particularly in the inner cities. So it's nice to see somebody do something. It's certainly a populist issue that Sally can come and wave a flag on. She knows that the majority of the community supports it. However, Chief Oates artfully dodged your question about the pre-existing discretion that officers already have. I think most of us have probably experienced getting pulled over for a speeding ticket, but then being let off with a warning. Officers already had that discretion. So if they're going to have limitations, for example, I have police sources who tell me that part of the issue in Miami-Dade is that anyone with a pre-existing arrest record will be ineligible for the citation. And doesn't that most dramatically affect the neighborhoods they're claiming that this is going to help?
That's a good point. So, well, again, this is, I have to say, when you look at it from 30,000 feet, it's not about marijuana. It's about how the law is applied in different communities.
Yes,
Exactly.
And it's about changes that need to be made in how we decide who to imprison and who not to imprison. The general trend seems to be heading towards cutting down on the number of people we have in prisons. One way to do that is to decriminalize, effectively, certain actions. And that seems to be a national trend because it's just getting too expensive to keep arresting people, even if you don't try them. The courts don't have time to deal with them. The prisons don't have space for them. And the cops really would rather spend their time doing something else.
And to throw some shade, since it's this week in South Florida, I mean, the fact that Mayor Jimenez has still not publicly supported this, when it has the support of Director Patterson, who I think is justifiably under some fire, I think shows how out of touch with his own community and constituency the mayor is on this issue, on many issues.
When he gets back from the Paris Air Show, maybe we'll find out how he feels. There's another issue that my friend and colleague Glenna, I think, did some great reporting on this week, and that's on a piece of property that is just east of the American Airlines Arena. I remember this because in 1996, I, and Glenna as well, covered the campaign to build the American Airlines Arena, and the Miami Heat ran a series of ads which said, let's build a world-class waterfront. Oh yeah, we'll have an arena too.
And there's what it looks like.
And now, what was promised to be either a soccer field or just a green space accessible to anyone in the community. And Glenna, look, tell us what you found.
Well, I think that the issue here is that the promised park was never built there, and that's one thing. But the fence you're looking at in the lock is not a county fence. It's not a city fence. It's county property. And no one ever said boo about it in 20 years of language until this group of people from the Urban Environmental League and from Emerge Miami decided to take it back this weekend, held their own event, called it Dan Paul Park for the First Amendment attorney who wanted to keep Miami's waterfront open. And then we find out that it was the Miami Heat that kind of appropriated it and locked it up, and they use it for valet. And
we were just talking, imagine that if we had built a fence on our private property without a permit, we would get cited. But the Miami Heat built a fence and locked away public property and access to public property. And we're not hearing from, Sally didn't come on the show to talk about that, you'll notice. She didn't come on the show to talk about her vote on Skyrise, changing that vote. She didn't come on to talk about the Venetian Causeway.
We're a Times show here.
I understand, but my point is that, like, she comes on to talk about the populist things when no one wants to talk about. Basically, this is a go Miami Heat kind of a thing. Everybody wants to be,
Look,
be
this
for
is
the
just
home
another
team.
indication of the Heat's really arrogance and chutzpah, and what the county has allowed it to get away with. I mean, this is the organization that has promised, year after year to share, not profit sharing, but to pay the county a certain amount. And we just kind of turned a little bit of a profit just 2 years ago.
But we're talking professional basketball, professional football. We're talking the public pays for stadiums that they see nothing out of except when they pay to go to the stadium to watch the game.
We're talking about sports. It's sports welfare. That's
this
the
is
issue.
how they roll.
Yeah.
This is how they roll.
We have a mayor in this county, and we have a majority of the commission that are like reverse Robin Hoods. They steal from the poor and give to the rich.
So here's the question. With all due respect to the heat, blame here. With all due respect to the commission or the city for doing all of those things, blame here. But where is the public until and unless someone like the groups this weekend made a big public show? Why isn't anyone else holding our elected officials
I think part
and
of it
the
is
team to the fire?
Most people don't remember. Was it '96
right.
when the promises were made? They simply assumed that was heat property,
right?
And so, oh well.
It's a transient population. It's lack of institutional memory. Certainly, it's too hot to protest. I mean, like that's really what it comes down to in this town.
To the great credit of the Urban Environment League and Emerge Miami, wasn't too hot for them to go out and have 100 people at that park yesterday.
It should never be too hot to do the right thing.
And so more power to them. Nancy, before we run out of time, I want to get your reaction to the fact that the legislature, the legislative leaders, at least late this week, dug down, said we're going to take $400 million from our budget surplus and save our safety net hospitals so that Jackson and Broward Health and Tampa General, aren't
Are
really.
they our heroes? Not, especially in the House.
Thank you very much.
And look, we taxpayers are paying $75,000 a day for this special session to allow them to do what they should have done and what the House specifically should have done. Now, what they did is they put, $600 million to the safety net hospitals, and rightly, the South Florida hospitals, charity hospitals, Jackson, Broward, will be the largest recipients. They do have the largest, numbers of indigent.
This is, forgive the bad analogy, a metaphor, a Band-Aid, because this doesn't solve anything for next year, because we know the LIP money from Washington, they've said it's a 5-year program. It's supposed to end July 1st.
Right.
They're going to give Florida $1 billion for next year, and that's it.
And that is it. This came from state revenue, which means money that could go to education, that could go to Amendment 1. Don't get me started on that.
All right. Well, I'm glad we finally got to that. But Billy Corbin, always great to have you come in.
I just love that Nancy's the one that used Yiddish of the two of us on the show today. It's amazing.
You got to get the
I'm from New York.
Chutzpah. Okay. Charles Zeldin, great to have you come in, Nancy. Love you, darling.
Thank you.
Okay. The Broward Medical Examiner called it homicide by electrocution when a man died after being tasered by Coconut Creek police officers.
Now, the officers at the center of that case are back at work, apparently in the clear. Bob Norman investigates. Stay tuned.
Disturbing new details have come to light about 3 Coconut Creek police officers who repeatedly tasered a man last February, and that man, Calvin Reed, later died. The death was ruled a homicide by the Broward County Medical Examiner.
But those officers involved have been reinstated, put back to work. Bob Norman is following up on this.
I don't think that they should be policemen anymore.
Bonnie Arundale hoped 3 police officers who tased 39-year-old Calvin Reed to death would never return to the streets. She heard Reed's screams for help outside of her condo and saw those officers tase him repeatedly before he went into cardiac arrest. Last month, the medical examiner ruled Reed's death a homicide by electrocution, and a criminal investigation into those officers' actions is ongoing.
We hoped that there would be some justice.
But now the Coconut Creek Police Department has put those officers right back on the street, apparently clearing them of all wrongdoing.
Shock and disappointment.
That was the reaction from both Bonnie and her husband John to the news, who have both testified in the investigation and feel Reed's death never should have happened.
We were expecting the next news that we would hear would be an indictment.
Then Chief Michael Mann resigned after it was discovered that officers involved didn't have up-to-date certification to even carry the tasers, including Sergeant David Freeman, the senior officer on scene. Reed's family attorney, Jarrett Blakely, blasted the decision to put Freeman and the 2 other officers back on the street.
The residents of Coconut Creek deserve better than that. These armed officers are now patrolling the streets while they're under investigation for homicide.
The Coconut Creek Police Department does not have the last word on this case. It's now in the hands of the state attorney's office, and ultimately, it'll go before a grand jury. In Coconut Creek, I'm Bob Norman, Local 10 News.
And according to Bob, the officer's attorney suggests other factors could have contributed to Reed's death, including a heart condition and what blood tests show cocaine in his bloodstream.
And I will have something to say about this disturbing story coming up in my personal perspective after the weather. A live look from our Miami Tower Cam.
Weather Authority meteorologist Jennifer Correa has the forecast.
Good afternoon. So we are seeing a little more sunshine, but the clouds are still there, and we had a few passing showers this morning. The threat for passing showers will continue today, but keep in mind temperatures are still warming up. We're already in the upper 80s in some spots, but this is what it feels like when you factor in the humidity. It feels like 95 degrees in Kendall, including in Marathon. So basically another steamy afternoon for us. We continue with a strong east breeze, anywhere between 10 to up to 20 miles per hour, and that is driving in some passing showers to move quickly east to west. So not everybody will get the rain, but the story continues. That Atlantic breeze for the start of the work week. We'll see sun and clouds, but of course you can't rule out passing showers, maybe even an afternoon thunderstorm. Heading out to the beach today, there will be a high rip current risk. The surf between 1 to 2 feet. No advisories for boaters. And again, warming up to those upper 80s, feeling much warmer than that. Drink plenty of water and enjoy your Sunday.
Jennifer, thanks. All right, before we leave you now, a personal perspective about the lack of transparency by the Coconut Creek Police Department in the death of Calvin Reed. It took a week for the Coconut Creek Police Chief to even step up and give their version of the events that resulted in the death of 39-year-old Calvin Reed. He was tasered multiple times by 3 Coconut Creek cops. Now, make no mistake, Mr. Reed was not easy to deal with. He was belligerent, drunk, and he had cocaine and alcohol in his system when he was encountered by the cops last February. Police say he refused their commands to behave, so they tasered him at least 3 times. The Broward medical examiner concluded Calvin Reed's death was, quote, homicide by electrocution. The officers involved were suspended during the investigation, and that's standard procedure. But as you just saw Bob Norman report, those cops have now suddenly been reinstated. They're back on the job, evidently exonerated by the Coconut Creek PD. Well, I find this insulting. The Coconut Creek Police Department conducts an investigation and determines their officers did nothing wrong, and at the same time, the medical examiner says Calvin Reed's death was a homicide by electrocution. Hey, this just doesn't pass the smell test. The Coconut Creek Department should have asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to conduct this investigation. And if their own internal investigation is complete, let's see it. Where is it? Broward State Attorney Mike Satz needs to get more involved in this one. He needs to get the facts in Calvin Reed's killing before the grand jury. Was he tasered while he was in handcuffs? Eyewitnesses say he was. They also say he called out, "I can't breathe," and "they're killing me." Turns out he was right. A grand jury will look at the evidence and decide if the cops acted all right, responsibly, or if they acted criminally. But until the grand jury decides, those cops are back at work, and they don't deserve to be. That is my perspective for this week. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday. Remember, as always, stay informed, get involved.
And get online. We want to hear what you think. Here are the addresses. We invite you to weigh in on any topic you like on Twitter and Facebook and email, and so many of you are already, and we love that. Have a beautiful Sunday. Thanks for being with us.